So Memorial Day weekend presents us with a unique opportunity to take the time to be grateful for the courage and the service of those who have literally offered and in many cases given their lives for the tangible freedoms that we have here, including the one to worship in this way, and so many more. And so I would like to begin this portion of our program with a moment of silence in gratitude for all of those men and women throughout the history of this country who have been part of a bigger tapestry, a bigger story unfolding called freedom. Let me say thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Coming back into this space, we have the opportunity to ask ourselves, how might I, how might we, how might each of us practice more gratitude, embody and express more courage, embody and express more service? How might we do that in our lives? We learn in this teaching that there is no big or small in the universe. So there is no big versus small act of kindness. There is no big versus small gift. There is no big or small act of service. And there is no big or small act of courage, because each of us is right where we are in our own emotional lives. And what can be easy to one person is an act of tremendous courage for another. It could be that if you were an introvert or an extrovert who's been in hiding and is healing that just walking across the room and saying hello to another individual is an act of courage. I love the reading that Aggie shared with us just a few minutes ago, and thank you for that. I don't have that Barker book. I need that Barker book. Oh, my goodness. So one of the examples, actually, that we're fulfilling right now is that we're in this room together. Because we're in this room as those who have been seeking and discovering, studying and practicing, and even demonstrating and manifesting the results and the outcomes of a new way of thinking, a new way of feeling, which follows those thoughts, a new way of speaking, perhaps, and a new way of acting that is different from the way many of the people in our earlier lives have thought and felt and spoken and behaved. And so in being willing to risk alienation or risk being misunderstood or risk being thought of as foolish or selfish or inappropriate or whatever, laissez-faire or something, something that's not in touch with what really matters right now. We have already been courageous. We've already taken risks. And what we've done is, in so doing, we've brought something back to our own lives, but we're not here alone. So we've brought that something back to the lives that we share with other people. Whether we do it overtly or not, we've brought someone different back within us to the lives that we're living and the relationships that we are having. I gave a talk many years ago about this concept that we're always a leader in our lives, whether we believe it or not. You know, we look to the people who inspire us and we think of how, oh, I'm not there yet, you know. But the truth is that there are all of those who are walking with us, and there's some who are lingering behind, waiting to see how it works out for us. And then there are others who are further behind, or right where they're supposed to be in their own development. And so there are people who are looking at us, they're watching us. We are unknowingly leaders in their lives. We're always in front of and beside of somebody. Lots of somebodies. So we think about this concept of being courageous, of courage. And we think about this concept of leadership, and we realize that they go hand in hand. Because the scout is the one who goes ahead of everybody else to check things out and ride back and say, well, the enemy is up ahead, they're encamped on that knoll, or the weather's lousy, or whatever the case is. It could be for a race or a boat trip or a vacation, but often we send, actually all of our weather people are scouts, right? So we send people ahead to tell us what's up, to bring information back to us so that we can be more informed about where we're going. Many of those are widely accepted, but many are not. Again, because if you're the first person to make a new scientific or philosophical or spiritual discovery, those who have been accustomed to the way that we had seen things will tell you that you're wrong. And in the old days, you used to get in a lot more trouble than you do now in most places for daring to have a new idea, right?
Yes.
You might be forgiven posthumously, but hey, we don't want that. Okay. So the very idea that we're going ahead and embracing new ideas and bringing them back, it's necessary for the advancement of everyone. Now, you may not be a natural adventurer, and so you may have a supporting role of an adventurer in your group. The crazy one who always goes first. Yeah, okay. You might have that. Or you might have a dormant adventurer or repressed adventurer within you. I was out front and the leader of everything, first to stick my toe in or my finger in or my mouth in, everything up until second grade. And then I went to a different school where the dynamics shifted so completely that I went into hiding. And I started faking injuries and reasons why not. I had them up this arm and down that one. And I withdrew, and I was no longer that adventurous person until I was about 40. And so I was in this teaching since age 24. So somewhere between 24 and my late 30s, something finally cracked open, and I said, oh my God, I am now that precocious 6 and 7-year-old I used to be. I had come to believe that I was an introvert. I had come to believe that I wasn't adventurous. But the truth is that the leader in me, the courageous person in me, the explorer in me was repressed. So think about it. You may have become accustomed to thinking about yourself in a way that's not true. You might have to go all the way back to the innocence of your childhood just to discover the real person. I recommend that you check that out. Okay. So we have all that. What happens when we bring this stuff back to our people is that we end up being new information, God expressing the divine idea in action, which is service. And before we go further into service, I want to say this too. Many of us not only went on a spiritual quest and ended up here and wherever we've been and wherever we're going, but we also made a decision somewhere along the lines to get well.
Yes.
And if you were surrounded by people who were not well in the psychological sense, your choice to get well may have mystified or confounded them.
Yes.
It might have seemed foolish or frivolous or downright selfish. Selfish.
Yes.
That's what happens when you decide to become a healthy person and you're surrounded by people who aren't awake yet and don't know about their dysfunction. They just don't know. 24 years old, when I only made a decision to get help for myself, it had nothing to do with anyone else. But the people around me who were accustomed to the behavior that I was giving up were offended.
Yes.
They thought that I had judged them. All I did was help myself.
Yes.
So remember that even when you make a choice to get well and you're surrounded by people who aren't there yet, it's not good or bad or right or wrong, but there's a possibility that they're not going to get you. You might even lose what you thought was a dear friend. But you know what? Don't stop, right? Do not stop. It is your time. It might not be their time.
Yes.
And what can happen, what often happens is that a little further down the road, if you abstain from proselytizing and trying to save everybody and offer them your free advice all the time, is that they will eventually ask you, how did you do that?
Yes.
And that's when you tell them what you did.
Yes.
Okay? So think about that. That is courageous. That is leadership. But it's, see, there's a spiritual principle in here. You didn't go out and do that so that you could be a good influence on somebody else. You went because it was your time to go searching. It was your time to courageously leap beyond the bounds of what was already known.
Yes.
It was just in you. And there came a time, there's a beautiful quote from Ananias Nin, which I can't remember, but there comes a time when you can know when the fear of what might happen to you is overcome by the absolute necessity to go find out.
Yes.
And so you do it,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You do it. So in the process of that, you end up being of service, right? You end up being of service. Again, you're not of service because you say, I really need to think of something swell to do to help all these people. No, once again, you were following your heart and your soul and being adventurous because something said there's something more than this, there's more than this. I know, I felt that my whole life. And I heard that I was wrong. I found out that they were wrong. And that's okay. That's okay, because guess what? Their parents didn't know either. You know, some of us claim to be the adult child of something or other. Well, you're not only the adult child, you're the adult grandchild and probably great, on and on for thousands of years, offspring, ancestors of people who didn't get it. But that's why we're here.
Yes.
We're here to remember. We're here to get it. And we can. And we have. And we are on our way. So what happens is, again, that courageous exploration leads to coming back with something new. It's the classic hero's journey. And we end up being of service naturally because we bring a new us into our dynamic, right? So, of course, the last piece is gratitude. Well, gosh, you know what happens is every time I do that, and I don't give in to the thing that says, oh, be cautious, don't rock the boat, what will people think, or this could be difficult, or I don't know if I'm capable. If I don't listen to that voice and I go for it, I'm automatically of service, and I discover something about myself I didn't know I could do. I discover something about myself I wasn't certain was there. And I feel grateful. And yes, there are reasons for gratitude, reasons to feel grateful that show up in the rest of my life. And once again, because of the order of things and spiritual principle, I'm not going out there to find out something great to bring back to these people, to give it to them so that they'll feel grateful, or so that I will. Gratitude is a natural byproduct. And love is an aspect of God, and God must be embodied and expressed. It must be expressed to be complete. And so that urge, that divine givingness to take form and have expression is God's Spirit Creator moving through us. That's service, right? That's gratitude, that's service. So I had some thoughts about some ways that we have already done this many times in our lives. First of all, how many people in this room are a parent? Okay. Okay, so you already did this courageous thing. you know, there may have been books on the subject, but the fact is, once you were in, and you got to discover along the way, and you're probably still doing that right now, right? Okay, that's courageous. You're a leader, okay? You're being of service. Lots to be grateful for. Okay, what if you were the person, maybe you were the spouse or the sibling who read the directions on Christmas Eve or sometime during Hanukkah and whatever, and it had to do with putting together a bicycle or a swing set or a toy train or a fish tank or whatever, some cool thing that required somebody to read the dang instructions and put it together before the next morning so that this surprise and this plaything could happen. There you go. What about the people in the household? Now, we used to say VCR, but I mean, didn't know how to work cable television, whatever the component of the day is, because it's going from DVD to Blu-ray to, I don't know, to the smart TV, which I don't understand yet, don't have one, to the remote control, to how they all work together, to computers. See, I got really good at setting up the stereo, and then, of course, technology evolved. I could still do that, but computers and software programs and how things work together. Microsoft Word, forget about it. I just decided it's not that important. Okay? But somebody goes ahead in our group, in our sphere, and says, I'll do it. You know, and then they come back and they explain it to the rest of us. So we need that, right?
Yes.
Okay. So there's some other ones. We already talked about thinking differently, feeling differently. We spoke briefly about speaking and acting differently. You know, when you change your diet, or you choose to stop taking in something, whether it's a beverage or a whole family of beverages or carbs, you know, or cigarettes or whatever, you decide, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. I was a vegan for a very long time, but I backpedaled from there a little bit. But I remember when I had such a specific diet, I was on the verge of being a breatharian. And I took all these little things, cell salts every 3 hours, and all my multivitamins, and can't have that, and don't do that, and you know, I was very busy with it. But anyway, so when you make a choice to change your lifestyle in the company of others who are still doing what most people are doing, there you are again being weird, right? But you're also being a leader because your pallor changes. You know, right? Your energy level changes. You're not sick as often as other people are. Or you get over something much faster than they do. Or you're the person at the office and they come up at you and they say, ooh, it's going around, you're going to get it. And you say, no, actually, I don't believe that. And then they really look at you like you're from the moon. Right? Or you got your thieves, right? Whatever it is. See, we do all these things. There's more. There's more. Because it's Memorial Day weekend. And what we are memorializing is people who have willingly died for us to be here. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we could convert this time into another reason to celebrate? Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could envision and imagine and think towards and feel towards and speak towards and act towards a day when we say, that's ancient history. We don't have to do that anymore. And there is a way to get there. The way to get there is to be that courageous person who decides to clean up their language. And even though, again, you sound weird when you're learning how to do it, and I have bucked this one, and I've worked on it a little, and then I'm like, oh, it's too hard. You know, if we're willing to be courageous, to take a risk, to learn new stuff, to not get it right the first time, and to become more conscious in our languaging, we will contribute to peace. We really, really will. Because we're all connected. So when I speak violently, when I speak without compassion, when I speak hatefully, with blame or shame or condemnation, I am contributing more of that to the collective. I am reinforcing that. I am saying this is the dominant belief. The dominant belief always manifests. It is not just true for the individual, it is also true for the collective. So if you want to shift what's going on out there, shift the dominant belief, okay? So that means shift yours. We can't force anyone to do this, so we have to do it courageously, by example, till they get inspired, till they say, how'd you do that? And then we can tell them, okay? We just can't make it so, because then we wouldn't be free. So we can do it with our language. Are you ready to do it with your Facebook posts? Are you ready to say, okay, there's an angry post. Now maybe what I could do is I could either bypass it, or I could comment and I could say, you know what? I have a similar idea, and here's how I would phrase it. Because I choose to use language which is life-affirming, which shames no one, which blames no one, which condemns no one. There's an opportunity right now, a big one. And we are getting caught up in what we think is so wrong about other people that we just think, oh, there's an exception to my spiritual practice because this guy or gal is, and there's an opportunity to practice saying what we believe in our hearts and to do so affirmatively, to do so in a life-giving way, a forgiving way. That's not the same as condoning behavior. But if we are up in arms, if we are polarized, if we are galvanized, if we are in opposition, if we are in battle, if we are fighting, if we are at war, that's not going to help. That's going to perpetuate all of that. It's going to make it last a little longer. So yes, you get to be weird. You get to be the first one in your group who says, you know what? I actually feel different about that. Here's how I see it. And they'll say they either not invite you to lunch again, or say, wow, something in me felt like I recognized that. It felt good. I wonder how she managed to say it that way. I'd like to know more. Okay? There are ways that we can go ahead in our thinking, in our feeling. None of this is in secret, like it or not. It just isn't. In our emoting, in our speaking, in our acting, in our private moments, we're still connected to the allness, to the collective. And so if we can be courageous and willing to be of service to ourselves and one another, to find that higher plane, that greater way, every time we remember to do it, just sort of set our mental reminder, oh yeah, let me reach a little higher before I open my mouth, right? Before I click send. Just do that. We do that. Then we get to be part of a massive army of growing. It's 6.5, 7 billion people on the planet, and we are connected by this amazing thing called the internet. It has been prophesied that it can be used for quickly communicating good, for quickly communicating enlightenment. Why not? So we can do that. We have the power of that vote in every moment, with every thought we think, with every feeling we have, with every word we speak or type, with every message that we give out. And most of all, with the energetic signature that we uncover when we do this, which is pure love, which is absolutely whole. We can do that. So I invite you to be courageous and to be a leader, to be of service in that way, to express your gratitude and go out there and find more wonderful things to bring back to your people and to your life, and see how wonderful that